blessed unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. Further evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Self-Love Show. I'm Dawn Light, your co-host. My beautiful sister here is Trish White. She's with me. And in case you're new to the show, welcome. We just love doing this show. It's such a gift in our lives and to you, from our hearts to you. And today is going to be great. I'm delivering a beautiful message today. And in case you don't know, we just want to share. There's so much beautiful content in the last 3 years doing this. It's such a beautiful, sacred, from our hearts to yours. And I invite you to go check it out on YouTube and all the other platforms and like, share, subscribe, because we just want to keep getting the message of self-love out to everyone who, is desiring to expand their consciousness and the love inside their heart and in your relationships mostly, right? Because that's who we care most about, is our loved ones and our family and our being a human on the earth. It takes relating and relationships. And so why not have deeper, expanded love?
And I'm so excited to introduce you today, Dawn. So acceptance is the first law of spirit that allows us to see things as they are, rather than as we would like them to be. Very on the nose today for me, thank you. When we embrace acceptance, we let go of our attachment to being right and our need to control the outcome of situations. This can be incredibly liberating, as it allows us to live in the present moment rather than being trapped in our illusions and judgments. Acceptance is a powerful tool for freeing ourselves from the limitations of right and wrong. It allows us to let go of our attachments, see the bigger picture, and connect with our inner wisdom. While it may not always be easy to embrace, the benefits are tremendous. By cultivating a state of acceptance in our lives, we can experience greater joy, peace, and fulfillment. So why not start embracing acceptance today and see where it takes you? So in today's show, Dawn will discuss the 5 types of acceptance and how to move into greater acceptance of all of life and personal curriculum. Dawn Light Amora is an extraordinarily gifted spiritual psychology coach, which is very true, and self-love activist. She specializes in supporting high-achieving women who struggle with unresolved trauma in their backgrounds that affects their marriages and partnerships. She received her bachelor's in psychology from the California Coast University in Santa Ana, and she attended a master's level program called Soul-Centered Living at the University of Santa Monica in spiritual psychology. Dawn is an expert in theta healing with 16 years of experience. Her focus is getting to the roots of trauma through spiritual psychology coaching to reveal the authentic self and the fully expressed, love-centered life. She's launching her program, Unleash Your Sovereign Queen, which helps women rewrite the story of distrust and come home to love. Dawn lives in Santa Rosa with her husband of 20 years and their 12-year-old son. Hi, Dawn.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
This is where you live, lady.
I know, it's great.
Welcome home, babe. Oh, we were talking about, so the things that you don't know behind the scenes here of the Self-Love Show is that we get on about a half an hour early. We take care of any technical difficulties and we drop in. And then Dawn shares like an amazingly heart-centered and spiritual, just like connected prayer where it helps all of us, the two of us and our guest, to really drop in. And it was such a sweet conversation today. And it was all about embracing acceptance for both of us, like the way that some of the things that I'm working through in my life, which I'm sure I'll share all about it in a moment, and the things that Dawn has in her life, because that's the thing, is like we get stopped up in our brain. We're like, we want something and we want it this way. And then it doesn't happen that way. That's not how the world works. And then we're like, oh, So tell me more about acceptance, Dawn. I could use some guidance right now.
Yeah. Well, like I said in the intro, acceptance is the first law of spirit. And once we move into accepting of our curriculum and leaning into it, just having a release there, surrender to it, then we can move further into cooperation with the next steps. Cooperation is the next step. But if we're in resistance and I mentioned the concept of right, wrong, good, and bad. Well, that's the land of the ego. The ego will want to always judge what is good, what is right. It needs to classify it in order to keep ourselves safe and secure because it's always searching for safety and security. And so it has to categorize things and really what will happen is if you're not aware of it, the ego will find a position, a stance like I'm right, you're wrong. And that's where a lot of like blame, shame, wronging can kind of take place. And when one is not in acceptance or it's too difficult to accept, then the ego will come in and find that black and white stance in a sense to judge it and then categorize it because it's too hard to face reality sometimes on the outside. It's a mirror, right? Life is always giving us a mirror to reflect like, oh, this is a part of me that I'm seeing through this. What is this gift? But if we're not willing to see it through that way, then we can really get behind like, oh, that's their thing, and we've lost the learning at that point.
It's true.
And when we lean back into the soul perspective and say, okay, I'm willing to surrender, I'm willing to accept, doesn't mean that I have to like it. It doesn't mean that I have to agree. Say if it's somebody's really bad behavior or terrible attitude, or I'll use me as an example. Like I pulled up to a red light, waiting for the red light, and I had this you know, gentleman standing on the corner, like asking for cash, having a little sign, uh, be incredibly rude to me and just make faces at me, and like it kind of scared me. I felt like a sense of violence coming from him, and I just had to work through it in the car. But I didn't fight against it. I just moved into a place of acceptance and loving inside my being, so that I could diffuse the energy. And that was me moving into acceptance of like, okay, this man is angry and I can be in acceptance here. I don't have to do anything about it. I don't have to fix it. His curriculum is his curriculum. I can witness it and be in the loving here, even if it scares me a little bit, his behavior. I'm just using that as a short example, right? But so let's just talk a little more about acceptance. Where are we not in acceptance for our curriculum in our life? Sometimes things are really, really challenging and God is bringing us an opportunity through a
Yes.
stacking situation, like one situation on top of the other, on top of the other. And it's kind of like we call it stackers. And it feels like when it rains, it pours, that expression. Well, what's happening is it's creating a pressure. It's creating a
Yes.
pressure for us to kind of awaken inside our consciousness around a pattern, something. And it'll always be kind of like pressure, 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 pressure until we have a breakthrough or breakdown. But a lot of times, what can be happening is there's a place in our consciousness that's not in acceptance of what's going on, really, fully.
You want to hear
Does
my stackers?
Sure. Tell me your stackers.
All right. So, God, where do I start? So I've had a couple stackers lately where you know me, and maybe some of you out there don't know me, but some of the, one thing I can be like, okay, I got this. Two things I'm like, whew, got this. Three things and I'm like, what am I doing now? And there's a little bit around so I had kind of like a shift in a friendship recently, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago, that kind of like really shook me. And then I lost my Instagram, which is something that I know this is a first world problem, but it's something that I've been building my business on, and like how I've been advertising. which shifted every plan that I had and the teaching gigs that I was doing this summer because I lost a platform that I no longer have access to. And it's touched like every part of the feelings of my stability in my life, So it touches my money, it touches my work, it touches my future, it touches my like purpose-driven work. And then I'm moving again because living in your integrity can be really difficult sometimes. If And what I mean by that is that when you choose to live your values, that you actually have to walk that. And I've chosen to move from a situation that isn't really harmful to me, but I can't participate in systems of harm with other people, right? So silence or non-action is complicity. So I'm choosing to move. And then I just found out last night that I had some really I I didn't actually graduate because there's some shifty stuff around the stuff, like the way that they looked at all of my classes and what I needed. And I'm just sitting here feeling a little like I have no idea where to go next. Like all the structures and the things that I'm really proud of in my life have and the stability pieces, like, are starting to break down a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to shake it out and I'm going to be with it. Um, oh, and the last bit is this health thing. So I recently figured out, oh, maybe you don't know this, but I had a parasite for the last year that's causing a lot of digestive issues. And I'm 6 days into a parasite cleanse, which is rocking my world.
Woohoo!
So I'm like, hold on tight, like hold on. And I'm having all these stackers, and I'm sitting here kind of like the it's like a layering of letting go because I'm like, oh, okay, well that's not happening. Like it feels crumbly, like I'm kind of like trying to find my footing.
Mhm.
But I'm also trying to take a step back and look at the larger picture or what the spiritual lesson is here.
Beautiful.
Got any insights? I have no idea.
Beautiful.
I'm too in it to see it.
Well, I heard you say living in your integrity is hard, and I really wanna help you question that belief structure. Is that accurate? Does it have to mean that it has to be hard?
No, I don't think that's exactly the correct word. Living in integrity means that you walk the talk, right?
Beautiful.
And I mean, here was my options. Like I could stay in a situation like I'm not being harmed, but I'm watching harm happen.
Mhm.
I'm watching this whole experience happen where people aren't taking responsibility for their impact on others, and they're actually gaslighting other people. Now, is
That's
it
harmful.
that's totally harmful. And so I'm like, oh, I could just be comfortable and stay here and not do anything and but moving is a lot of effort. Like
Yes.
physically moving and changing my mind and finding another place to live. Like that is actually a lot of effort and work in like moving material, not only just like this physical body.
Mhm.
So whatever the word, maybe not hard, but living in your integrity means that you're walking the path and it's not comfortable sometimes.
Yes, I love that. It's true, it isn't.
So what I mean by hard, it's like that. It's like, oh, wow, I could feel living out of my integrity.
Mhm.
And it felt like I could feel it in here and in my stomach, and I could feel it churning. Like I was like, I could stay here. And I thought about it and I was like, but this is a dangerous situation for people who might not have clear boundaries.
Mhm.
And
But
that
it feels to me that you are in acceptance of what is going on in your world. It doesn't I feel a sense of lightness coming from you because you're aware of all these things, and yes, it's stackers, but you're leaning in, you're curious. The fact that you're asking your soul, like, what am I learning from this, tells me you're in acceptance of the information. You're not pushing against it with resistance, like ignoring it or wanting it to go away by just resisting in general,
That
right?
makes
Yeah. So really you're already moving into the next phase, which would be cooperation, because you're in congruence with spirit. Like, okay, there's deep foundations that aren't serving me any longer, and they're starting to crumble and fall away because I can see you, spirit, leading my life forward, and these things are being removed and things are being slowed down temporarily so I can make moves and shifts. And really, it's moving you in the direction of more stabilization. So you're getting an opportunity to reframe what you want out of life in this moment. You get to slow down and choose, what do I really want?
I really want to feel safe in my home. I really want to feel clear, like having clear, like, what are they're called, like the steps that you put down in your yard, in your garden.
Stepping
Like,
stones.
wow, that is that is an ADHD thing for me. I'm like, the thing that washes your clothes, the washing machine, yes. So stepping stones, I want a clear stepping stone sort of process. Not, I don't need it to be hyper clear, but I need more clarity. Like here's an example of taking a responsibility for my life. So I've already started to create a spreadsheet of all the classes I might need to finish my degree at UC Berkeley. I've spent 4 or 5 hours on, like, okay, this is what I need. These are the required classes. This is how many electives I need. I'm going to plan my whole curriculum out because I've had 5 or 6 academic advisors that did not advise me well. I have so many credits right now that don't transfer. I have so many credits because I just took a bunch of classes without any understanding of what I was supposed to do. Or people would tell me, yeah, you need to take this class. And then it wasn't a class that I took chemistry last semester, Dawn. I hated chemistry. I literally loathed every bit of it. I do not like chemistry. You saw it. I mean, I'm using these words because it was like clawing me. It's like a cat when you're trying to get it out of and I'm like clawing through the carpet. Like it was like, and and I found out they were like, oh, no, you didn't need chemistry. And I was like,
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
that class was like, I loved the lab teacher, but the teacher was really rude and degrading. He was like, I'm not going to answer your questions. You just need to study more. Like, it was just so bad. The whole thing was so bad. And I was like, wait, I didn't have to take that class. And my advisor told me I had to take that class. I was like, I'm taking my life in my own hands.
Wow, what a powerful learning. What a powerful learning that the advisor actually, yeah, that's so powerful. And I love it. I love that you took the action. I really want to praise and acknowledge you're like getting clear of what you need, what are the next steps, so that you don't have to rely on an outside source to tell you what are your next steps, that you're just attuning and getting clear. That's beautiful.
You know what the lesson was? Is to gain better mentorship. If you know something feels off, to gain really clear mentorship,
Mhm.
right? There were many times, Dawn, where I was struggling, and you showed up in a really big way for me as a mentor, as loving, as compassionate, as really just in a deep holding that I needed. That you were like, hey, and I think what happens is that we can get into some, when we have our stackers or when we're in a place of non-acceptance. Like, I think that sometimes we just need to know that we're not doing it alone.
Absolutely.
And so this is the power of having great guides or someone who's been like who looks like you and who's lived some of your experiences and who's had, like some disrupts in their life that be like, hey, I know this is not exact, like this is my way of doing it, but there are ways of doing it and let's find your way. And that is a really powerful place. Like that's what I got. I was like, oh, not like, oh, I need to take responsibility for my own thing, but to actually like, oh, I need a better mentor. I need people to ask questions to who've gone through this before because there are other people like that. And I found someone to help me. And that's what inspired me to do this,
Beautiful. Well, and it's also it's where you are in your consciousness. You have to take responsibility and own that actually right now is you are seeking an advancement in your consciousness and moving forward with your degree and being clear, this is the path I want to take and how am I going to achieve this goal? And so it's very, very clear in your heart what you want. And so therefore you're drawing and your spirit is working with you to draw and attract the mentorship, the people, the circumstances, and the right alignment so that it can take place.
Yeah.
And so I just really want to invite you into a conversation of just because this stuff is surfacing that might be seeming like it could be potentially pulling you sideways a little bit, to just lean in and go, okay, these pieces are a part of this piece of my journey, and what can I do that will nourish me and build my foundation, and what are my next steps? And that's just coming into cooperation inside of your heart with where you're at and not in resistance to this difficult pieces that are surfacing. And it's often I find and I'll speak for myself and lots of clients that I coach, I find that it can be really it's human of us. It's human of us to have resistance around the stuff that surfaces because it can be painful. It can be painful to see an aspect of ourself that we're just not that was hidden from ourself up until now. I'll use a client like yesterday. One of my clients came, and I haven't seen them in a long while, but they're having a relationship with a person, and it's being revealed to them this very block in their relationship where there's deep unavailable emotional energy, like not available emotional unavailability. And they were floored when I gave them the invitation into, well, what do you feel this outer reflection of life is showing you about yourself? And when they sat with that and went inside and moved into acceptance of this situation instead of being like it's them, it's their fault, because that's the right wrong perspective, right? Positionality of it couldn't possibly be me, it's all them, right? And that's the ego when that comes forward because it's trying to protect you from seeing the shadow part of self. But reality was he moved into a place of acceptance, and then he just dropped in, and it was like a deep sadness surfaced, and a deep connection point to like, oh my gosh, this is my mother. This is my relationship with my mother. And then a whole doorway opened up in consciousness to see how his young self didn't ever feel safe in relationships and couldn't reveal his own emotional capacity. So now he's very aware that he's creating this reality for himself. And in fact, he's enrolled her to show up that way for him so he can see this. And like that was a huge aha in our session. And this was just yesterday. And I just was floored by his awareness. And like all it was subtle nudges and being sensitive and deep listening and guidance, and I guided him through a bit of a process to really dialogue with the younger self. And like it was a whole process that came forward, but tears were shed, sadness, and then beautifully moving into cooperation, because then it was the acceptance was taking place. We were living in the heart of acceptance in that moment. And then we're able to move into cooperation. Okay, what are my next steps to work with this material so that it can lift and clear? Because our karma resides in our emotional spaces in our life. Karma surfaces through our relationships, through the ways of being in relationships, and our emotional nature. And it's held at the emotional level mostly. And you want to see it as unresolved emotional material is where what we're here and what we took embodiment to heal. And it has to do with all kinds of things. Um, there's been my main curriculum in the life in this life is always, I mean, I feel like I'm really good at trusting now, but I've done a lot of personal work in this area. But I had to move into a place of accepting that trust issues around trusting and trusting men. This is what led me to cultivate a whole program, is because I saw there was a need for this. Like, oh, there's so many people that struggle with trust and trusting in relationships, and where those barriers come revealed, and how can we move into greater levels of trust of self and trust of our partner to show up for us and be with us. And so, yeah, I'm just speaking a little bit about my curriculum and what led me to be here and do what I've done in the world. And honestly, like, I think the reason why I chose the topic of acceptance today is because it's so relatable. Everyone in life can relate to acceptance, because it is our truest relationship with God, to move into a place of acceptance of what is in our reality at every moment presently.
It's true. And I think that that's one of the things that stops us is just resistance of acceptance. So, when I changed my definition of love a couple of years ago to the radical acceptance of what is, again, I'm just going to reiterate what you said. Like, it's not that I have to sign on and support whatever's happening. I'm not like, you know, buying into it or participating in it. I'm like, oh, this is what is happening, like, directly. Now, can I just be with what is and see it as it is, no judgments, and make my choices from there?
Mhm.
Generally, I'm going to make choices from love, and kindness and understanding and compassion, and these are practices, right?
Mhm.
So, um, when we get to sit back and be like, oh, let's talk a little bit about judgments. When we sit back and we're judging ourselves or other people, I mean, when we judge others, and it's really a judgment on self as well, right? Is that where we're in our judgment spaces, we get to really look at what the driver is, the want, need, and value underneath that. Like, what is the driver for this judgment? What do I want right now? What is the value that's being stimulated or not met in the moment? And when we sit back and get to accept that our feelings are ours, and that person has their own strategies to meet their needs, and maybe they don't match ours. Welcome to living in 8.5 billion people. You know, it's we get to learn to accept reality as it is instead of resist it or fight it, which I think is actually a lot easier, in a long to wrestle with reality. Guess what's going to win? Does anyone know what wins if you're wrestling with reality? Okay.
Well, it's just creating more resistance. If you're wrestling with reality, you're just going to keep creating more and more resistance for yourself.
Exactly. Reality wins.
Yeah.
That's always the answer. I love that we're talking about acceptance.
What you resist persists. That's a really beautiful phrase, and it really opens the doorway in your consciousness to receive God's guidance inwardly when you move into acceptance. It doesn't have to mean that you have to like what is taking place. You can still have your upset around it. You can still hold your emotional material that's surfacing around whatever the situation may be, yes, things are wildly uncomfortable in life, right? There's really, really challenging curriculum that surfaces in people's lives, like deep narratives, really challenging relationship stuff, family stuff, business stuff, legal stuff. Like, I mean, it's the gamut, you know. This human life can be very, very challenging at times and beautiful at the same time. And so it's not asking you to just be like, oh, I have to accept this and go along with. It's more of moving into acceptance. This is here for me. This is here for me.
Mhm.
It's serving me in my consciousness, even if I don't like it, even if I disagree with it. It's here as an opportunity for me. And that is what I mean by acceptance. That is the offering that acceptance is the invitation into acceptance is, can you move into a place of inward, like, okay, this is for me. I may, you know, hate that everything fell apart in my world right when I moved, but the reality is God was serving my life by giving this beautiful opportunity, and actually it rearranged our life in a much better way,
Exactly.
and so it was really challenging when that stuff was surfacing, and the things that I was endeavoring in to and spending my months of my time participating in to prepare to do, then all just kind of like fell away. But it wasn't meant to be in my life long term. I'm just using me as an example here. But I moved right into acceptance of and gave myself the invitation into really seeing what is the true opportunity here. How can I be in alignment with this, and how can I lean in to the soul opportunity and the soul line so that I can receive the blessing out of it and move into alignment with what spirit is asking of my life and myself and my energy. And so that's the gateway that acceptance offers you, is being in alignment with your spiritual purpose, being in alignment with the energy that's flowing into your life and the opportunities that are flowing into your life.
I just want to talk about what it feels like to be in alignment.
I think it's flow. It feels like flow. It feels good. You feel elevated. You feel like ease, a sense of ease and grace. Things fall into place easefully. There's not as much tension. You're not experiencing like wild anxiety or the gamut of emotion that can be surfacing. It's more like there's a lightness.
I love that. I also have experiences too where sometimes being in alignment feels a little crunchy. Like this example of living in my integrity and like choosing what's in alignment for my heart and spirit. Um, because I have values and ways that I believe and move from my being, right? It's the way that I want to live. And sometimes it can be a little like, hmm, you know, but I do trust that I will get to that place that once, the choices are made and that my action steps, like I put my body on the front line of like my action and my words, that I'm in alignment with my integrity, that I'm going to find flow again, which is the elevation, which is the movement where I feel clear and on the path. But I think that sometimes alignment can be really getting into alignment. Maybe that's the get
That's a
to
beautiful way to, yes, I see what you're saying. It is getting
maybe
into alignment.
maybe the distinction is getting into alignment can be a little like you're like, it's like I don't know if anyone's ever missed or almost missed um, an off ramp.
Let's just
You're
say
like,
experience.
and you're like trying to get on the off ramp, and you hit a little of the like little bumpy moments. Like maybe it's a little like that. Wow, these are really silly today.
But it's a great analogy because everyone's done that. Everyone's missed or missed the exit,
We're
and
close to missing the exit, and it takes a little bit of time, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
or if you miss the exit and then you have to go like 5 streets past it and turn around, and like sometimes life gives us detours so that we can be in greater alignment. And it's like, are we judging our life as it's not, when things feel like crunchy and like, I, we can judge it. We can judge, like, I just, and this is where it's like, oh, this is really for me. I have a lot of judgment surfacing. I get to clear this stuff. I get to look at it. I get to see, like, oh my gosh, this is my mom's stuff, or my dad, or my grandma, or there's always a deeper theme to what's going on behind the scenes if you're willing to look.
Absolutely.
If you're willing to look, that's the most profound thing about it is, are you willing? Are you willing to dive in and have the acceptance there and really lean in to see, oh wow, this is sacred honor to like do this work here right now. Inner work is what I'm speaking about.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
I love this in the sense of like getting curious about your own life. And to be honest, one of the things, this idea that our lives are just going to be positive and comfortable, like I know where this comes from. I'm not going to get into it, but that's not life. Like, I mean, really, like we were all taught that it's supposed to be all like hunky dory and like sweet, and we're gonna be like, oh my god, it's gonna be so good. No, that's not how it works. That
Well,
actually power move is to get really good at repair conversations and repair work, but also being able to live and move and dance with discomfort.
mhm, mhm,
Like, and to accept what is happening when what our brain wants isn't congruent with what actual reality is. Like
mhm,
being in that discomfort is actually an amazing place of acceptance.
mhm.
It's a power move there.
So I'll describe the five types of acceptance right now, just for everybody's clarification. So there's acceptance of what is. Um, oh, you're going to move me into a teaching moment now. Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
well, I'll just start from the beginning then. All right. So acceptance is the first law of spirit, and it is a quality found at the authentic self level. It is a game changer in that accepting can transport you into Rumi's field. And we've all heard this expression, but if you haven't, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. A place of unconditional loving and infinite peace. Right? Beautiful. Accepting acceptance opens a portal to grace. It's a major key to liberation from judgment and the emotional reactivity that follows from it. Acceptance is a doorway to freedom from the duality of right and wrong and good and bad. It's so simple, and yet at times not so easy, as the ego's attachment to its righteousness and positionality, rooted in seeing itself as the arbiter of what's right and what's wrong, can be so tempting. So, judgmental thoughts and emotional disturbance can feel so justified, and yet they trap us in five sense reality, experiencing the same thing over and over again, sleepwalking in illusions that are consequence of spiritual amnesia and the veil of forgetfulness. Acceptance simply means accepting what is. It does not mean agreeing with something, nor does it mean condoning behaviors that are destructive, nor does it mean passivity or resignation. Real solutions do not emerge from the righteousness of the ego. They emerge from the clarity of the authentic self and the wisdom of the spiritual heart. So, the information I'm sharing today is lovely spiritual psychology work from Ron and Mary Holnick. And these are the five stages or types of acceptance: acceptance of what is, acceptance of self, which means accepting both your humanity and your divinity, acceptance of others, learning to be aware of the distinction between someone's behavior and their soul essence, accepting of the world as it is. And then the most important one is acceptance of God. So I'm going to move into just a quick asking you a few questions. Now, I want to invite you to just take a pause for a moment and a deep breath. And for those listeners, if you're driving, if you're watching the show later, you don't have to close your eyes. But if you're not driving, you can close your eyes and take a deep, attuned heart to your breath. Take a deep, centering breath. And just attune to your heart. And just invite spirit in, right, in this moment. You can do that by just saying, Father, Mother, God, creator of all that is, I invite in my inner counselor, call her forward, call him forward, and just take a deep centering breath there. And I want to encourage you to really see the love that is inside your being. Feel your loving. And remember that you have all the inner resources necessary to respond to your life and your life curriculum. So, what is one area of your life that's challenged, that you're challenged accepting? Just think about that. What is one area that you're challenged accepting? You can write it down. Now, I want you to move into one area I'm challenged accepting is, and I invite you to complete the sentence. And then, if I were more accepting in this area, then fill in the blank. If I were more accepting in this area, then fill in the blank. And one more time. If I were more accepting in this area, then complete the sentence. And just keep doing this. And it will give you insight into where you're having resistance around accepting your curriculum. And this is a really simple process, but it's so love attuned and can help you have a mini breakthrough in what you might be struggling with accepting in your life. So this is beautiful. It's by Byron Katie. When you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Isn't that great? Where'd you go?
Oh,
There you are.
I was just listening. I love it. Only 100% of the time.
1% of the time between us?
No, 100% of the time.
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, this principle of acceptance alone has just supported my life so much because it helps create ease around the discomfort of whatever the curriculum may be. Just giving myself permission to have acceptance over the magnitude of the curriculum surfacing, whatever it is. If it's discomfort, frustration, anger, all the full spectrum emotions, and the underlying unresolved emotional material that's connected to the curriculum. Yeah, and it helps open a doorway in your consciousness to move into and merge with, so that you can become attuned on the heart level and start giving yourself that love and unconditional love and compassion for your circumstance, for your humanness, for the blessings, be able to see all of it and get out of that land of right, wrong, good, and bad in your mind, towards yourself, towards your life, towards others.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I ponder a lot about this good, bad, right, wrong thing. Like a lot. I pondered a lot about the ways that we dehumanize ourselves and each other. And one of the things that I often think about is societally, socially, how we were taught that we were separate from God and that God will punish us for our humanness, right? And how that made us bad, and what makes us good. And I think a lot about this idea of tatvamasi, and I might be saying it wrong. It's there's a it is an I am that too. So I listen. I have anxiety and I get really anxious a lot, and I have this one meditation that's like my security blanket, and I read or I listen to this meditation. I don't know. I probably listened to it probably 400 times. And it's a Ram Dass meditation. And he says this bit in here. He's like, Tatvamasi, I am that too. And I think about, like, can I love myself? Can I accept myself when I'm doing things that are considered bad, or not the things that are socially acceptable, or what that looks like, right? I mean, it's easy to love oneself when they're being good, right? Or to love your children when they're being good, or your pets, or the world when someone is aligning towards your beliefs and your values, like this idea of good. And then, but when they're bad, that they're undeserving of love. You know, and I've met, this is something I've been laying in bed at night thinking about actually for the last few nights. Is that I was like, gosh, I've met people who've murdered their partners, and I've talked to them, and I've been able to like hear their stories and hear their childhoods and hear who they are. And I was like, is this person, am I just going to like take this sledgehammer of you are bad and like degrade them in such a way that it makes them less than lovable or less than human? And I've really been thinking about how the ideas of good and bad, like this thing, like yes, we can have our moral judgments, but to actually impress that on someone else is such a suffocating, dehumanizing manner. To get out of the like duality of good, bad, right, wrong, um, actually just be with a person as they're being a person with interesting strategies, right? Can they accept that their strategies for getting their needs met are very different than mine and maybe not as loving? Maybe they don't know. So yeah, I've just been thinking about that bit of good, bad, right, wrong. Of like, oh, what are the pieces of myself that I have deemed bad, ugly?
Invitation into compassion for that person's suffering.
Exactly.
Can we be in the heart with their suffering? That they're suffering that much that they believed they were separate enough to actually strike out and hurt someone else that much to take a life. That's the deepest place of, there can be so much judgment held in a murder scenario. And I know this, I don't share it often, but I've lost quite a few people in my life to that tragedy.
Me too.
And it started very young for me, actually. Yeah, way too young to even understand. And I've had to ponder it deeply for many. Like I'm, in my late 40s now, and it I'm much, much more deeply compassionate for those beings now than I have ever been. But it took me a long while to get there because I held a really strong judgment for this person taking my friend's life. And I was really hard. I was only not even 18. I was young. And yeah, you just don't know. We really don't know the karma connected to each person. Not to say that someone deserves that, because I never believe that, but we just don't know. We don't know the lifetimes connected to it. We don't know the karma being possibly resolved through it. We just don't know. That is God's information, and it is up to us to, can we move into the heart of compassion for each party involved in what has taken place, because it's it's a loss for both, and all
Yes.
the family members connected. It's a loss
Everyone.
for all the family members involved. It's a massive ripple.
That's the thing is so when I'm hearing these stories, I mean, all of you know, and maybe you don't know, but I'm going to tell you again. For those of you who are new here, one of the reasons why this show was started is that one of like not only like Scott Thomas was our muse in Love Coach Academy, but also one of my dear friends was murdered by her partner at the beginning of COVID. And it took me a long time to wrestle with this person. Like, I wanted to know why. Is there really? Did I need to know why? No, did I need to come to acceptance of what is actually real and happening? That I don't have control over another person at all. But what I really sat with in meditation a lot was sitting with her husband. He was a young man who's not going to get out of jail for 15 years. He'll be a little bit older than me when he gets out. Just to lose one's life and experiences. And I thought about his, like, the things that I did know about his childhood. And again, it's not to say that I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with any of that. Like, I'm not signing off that this is, but I wanted to ask questions. One of the things that we talked about last night on the show was getting curious, like, instead of judging or reacting, choosing curiosity. And I think that there's a big, like, foundation of curiosity in acceptance. And so I wanted to get curious about another human life who's just as worthy of life and living and kindness and love and compassion as much as I am, even though this is an action that he took. Like, again, and to lean into curiosity is also such a really beautiful moment to find acceptance of what is. It's like, okay, well, so I don't know about anybody else, but acceptance for me is like, okay, this is what's happening. I'm going to come up with a couple plans, because plans for me, because I've had a lot of abuse in my younger years, plans for me know that I have a way or ways out of harmful, dangerous situations. So I always have plans. Prepare for the worst. Expect the best. Anyway, planning is one thing, but also just getting curious about another person's lived experience is also part of acceptance, I think.
Beautiful. And way to bring in the deepest place where, like, one could struggle with acceptance, like that's one of the most challenging curriculums to accept, is when that act takes place in our lives. And yeah, my heart just goes to all the people that this has ever taken place, and we just ask for the blessing of God's consciousness to pour forth into each person's life that has ever experienced a family member, a loved one, on either side of it, and that they are blessed with understanding, and that their grief is lifted, and that they get the gift of deeper compassion and peace in their heart around the occurrence. And yeah, and just ask for blessings there in that way, because it's a very, very difficult curriculum, and I know that there can be a lot of suffering around that particular path. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I only brought it up because I'd just been thinking about this counseling abusers course that I took a few months ago. It was really intense. It was just a really, really wild, intense moment of, like, to sit back and to hold the bigness of human expression experience without judgment was really, it was with the Michigan or Michigan correction kind of like government. So they weren't as compassionate as I was, but it really taught me a lot about, yeah, it just really taught me a lot about humans and what people need. There's so much trauma in the world, and how it like young childhood trauma and how it unfolds in adulthood it just blew my mind, to be really honest. I'm also
Mhm.
still having a hard time accepting that. Like I wrestle with that a lot. It's like the acceptance of how humans treat each other. And
Well,
also
and like you said, it stems from the roots of trauma. Trauma begets trauma, and so if one has a very deep curriculum of, deep misidentifications around a very traumatic event, and then they'll keep perpetuating that trauma because they're seeing it through a perceptual filter that's um, clouded with deep misidentifications around what that curriculum is, and then they make judgment calls on that perceptual filter that's clouded, and then therefore it keeps perpetuating curriculum
yes,
and trauma,
yes.
and they're not aware that they're perpetuating the same cycle.
Oh my God, I saw an Instagram reel. I'm such a millennial, it's ridiculous. I saw an Instagram reel the other day, and it was like this woman had gone through generations. It was really beautiful. Like she showed one of her great 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 grandmothers, and she was like she was abused, so she abused and went to the next generation and the next generation and the next, and until they got to the grandmother and then the mother, and that was incredibly powerful to see, to just see that whole experience go on. Um, yeah, it was just really really powerful to see that, to actually like visually see that we get to choose to stop the trauma and the harm.
Well, that's the whole point of doing the inner work is you're stopping the intergenerational patterns that have been passed down in your family lineage and whatever that may be. And that's the whole point, is to really lean in and go, you know what, the buck stops here with me. I'm not willing to participate in this structure, this paradigm, this pattern, this way of being any longer.
Yeah, no kidding. One of the things that the places that I choose, like my own practices for acceptance, is is to become like every person, every character, every person in the story, or in
Mhm.
the news, or in a drama triangle. I like become that person and like meditate on that as, what am I feeling? What I mean, just as me, like what am I feeling in my body as this person? And what I'm not, I can only be me in a situation. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And see if I can find loving acceptance there. I'm just like, okay, this is how it is. This is what is the strategy here? What is the need wanting to be met? The
Mhm.
strategy is this outward behavior and the languaging and all of these things, but what's the need wanting to be met? And I like feel the fear in my body and feel all of these things. And that's one of the things that I try to be in acceptance with, is like, how can I, there's a difference between like, F it, and being like true acceptance of it. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. So there's like the give up, and then there's the, oh, this is reality.
I
Does
can
this
meet
make
it.
sense? Go ahead.
Oh, I just said I can meet it. I can meet it
Yeah,
here.
meet it, and then consciously choose from a regulated nervous system where to go next. And I think that that's a really powerful place too. Is like, this is what's happening. I'm not going to resist it, because resistance is the fantasy that I've created about something that I want, and like I'm holding on. I'm attached to the idea of getting it the way that I want it. Right. Dawn, I love yours so much. I think
That's the
that
whole thing. It's positionality, letting go of the ego's positionality, move into acceptance. That opportunity, it always, because the ego is just searching for safety and security and control because it doesn't know any other. But the reality is spirit has our life. Spirit gives us our life, gives us our dreams, gives us our everything is from spirit. So of course we're going to be supported even in the most craziest scenarios that are given to us, we are going to be given the tools, the resources, the way forward. But it's of the highest and best to move into acceptance of what is, so that we can receive the highest and best next steps.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I have some exciting news.
Yes.
So, for those that are interested, I have a beautiful offering to share. It's called a 4-day Sovereign Queen Challenge. I'm doing it again. Yay! Woo! So, it's an activation. It's called Embody Your Radiance, Restore Your Trust, and Get the Love You Want. And I've put the link in the chat. Trish will share it out right now. And it's the dates are August 15th through the 18th. And I'm looking forward to you joining us. It's going to be really juicy and good. There's going to be lots of beautiful prizes daily. You'll come learn about like the basics of why trauma unfolds in the way it does, and where in every age stage that things can take place. The learning that takes place with each age stage, and really what can unfold and why patterns take place in the way they do. So this is a piece of the activation. You're going to get guided meditations. I'm going to basically do some active coaching with you. There's going to be beautiful 4 days, just beautiful free 4 days. Love for you to join me. It's called the 4-day Sovereign Queen Activation. This is for women that are really interested in making major headway in your relationship. Say you have been in a relationship and you just don't feel met, or you know that there's some barriers and some barriers in your relationship where you just haven't been able to stretch into the real healing there. And maybe you know that you're ready to stretch to the next level in your marriage, and you're ready to create this. You're ready to shift into it. You're ready to experience that love that you've always craved. Or maybe you've never been in a relationship and you keep attracting the wrong types of relationships, and you're ready to see why and what that is. This whole experience can really give you a deeper insight into your curriculum and how to really shift it inwardly so that it can have a shift outwardly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Say it again.
It's really good. Like, it was really fun last year, so please go do that. You honestly, if you need a little like tidbit of 4 days of something to really boost you and juice you up, this is absolutely it.
Yay! It's really fun. Come join us. It's free. There's going to be every day you're going to action step to do and prizes every single day. And at the end, I'm going to give away a really big prize. So you don't want to miss it. It's going to be so good.
Mm-hmm.
Juicy activation, queenly vibes. Come receive the Sovereign Queen download.
Oh my gosh. I love you so much. I love how giving you are.
Thank you.
This is why I love you.
Love
Well,
you too.
not exactly why I love you. There's so many reasons. There's many layers to why I love you.
I love you too.
I'd love to say thank you to Scott Thomas, Love Coach Academy, Roy and Russell for being amazing and helpful. Sign Network, Global Peace Tribe, for just supporting us all the time. And you know what? A big thank you to you all for showing up every week and, doing the hard work on yourselves. I see you. This is a lot of work, and you're doing it. So,
Yay.
see you here, same time next week. I hope you have a lovely evening, day. Have a lovely first, then have a lovely evening, and have a great week.